So let me tell you about why I don't think it's in inevitability. Again, as I understand it, first of all, as I understand it, there are multiple definitions or multiple things that we mean by the singularity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the common perception, or at least the one that I'm kind of first reacting to, is Ray's. It's a popular understanding of Ray's version, because again, some of the things that Ray is claiming in his book is often misunderstood. So the common perception that I think Ray is not really kind of working against is this idea that what the singularity is going to yield very fast within another 30 years is AI that is capable of producing an AI that's even smarter than itself, and then an AI that's even far smarter than itself at a rapid rate, and that's so rapid that once we start this process, it will sort of almost seemingly instantaneous arrive at some super intelligence that can then solve most of the problems that we have, including this really vital problem of longevity or immortality. So it sort of grants us immortality, and with that we can kind of solve everything else. So there is a sense of reaching this heavenly state almost. And of course, then the whole agenda becomes just to live long enough to reach, to bridge across that gap. And that's why Ray is taking his 250 pills a day, whatever it is, to make it through there. Yeah. So that thing, I think, is just wrong. I think it's wrong. First of all, the timing is wrong. It's just not going to happen in that, because all the precursor things that we need are just not there. But
what, in your opinion, are the precursors?
Well, I mean, I think that I think this is a case of what I call thinkism. Yeah. Thinkism is this idea that just by thinking about things you can solve problems. Okay, it's like assuming that if we had a real super intelligence right now that just could take all the literature of all the medical literature and then think about it and come up with a cure to cancer. Mm-hmm. And in fact, a lot of the things that we have to solve actually require experiments, actually require delving. We simply don't know. We don't have enough data about. We actually have to perform experiments, which on living organisms like ourselves will take time to produce results. Okay? And now, the common response to that is, oh, well, this super thing is going to do simulations. Well, the only reason why a simulation would run faster than real life is if it's simpler. Okay? It's just collapsing the complexity to something so it can speed it up.
What if we have a much faster microprocessor that could run the simulation at, say, 1 trillion times faster than real life processes?
Right, and so there's the idea that you mean the full complexity of life at a faster speed.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're kind of getting deep into this, but there's this idea of the Church-Turing hypothesis, which says that in fact all computations equal given unlimited time and space, and that's the difference between reality and emulation. Is that in reality the matrix in which you perform some calculation actually makes a difference. Okay, so because you don't have unlimited time and space, any computation is bound by the matrix, and the matrix does affect whatever you get out of it. So I don't actually buy the idea that you can actually replicate a process in full on a different substrate. I don't think that works, because the assumption is that the things are equivalent, but that only is if you have unlimited time and space, and that's not true for real systems. And so I don't think it's possible to actually replicate, even no matter how fast you go, to replicate a living system fully in all its degrees on another system, and vice versa. So I reject at the very fundamental this idea of the equivalency of computation. And so I think the idea that having that being able to, and of course, downloading all that stuff, I have the same issues with it. The idea that we can actually speed up a million times investigation of the real world by simulation, I think that we can learn a lot by it, and I think simulations will have a huge impact on the scientific method and what we know. But I don't believe that they're equivalent, and that therefore we can simply speed up and get answers. And so that's why I'm skeptical of that scenario as the only scenario that we have.
Yeah, and even here in your book, on page 332, you say that the only kind of mind I doubt will make many of is an artificial mind just like a human. The only way to reconstruct a viable human species of mind is to use tissue and cells, and why bother when making human babies is so easy?
Right, and so what I think is going to be much more profitable for us is to make alien types of minds. To actually, I think, in other words, I think we have another fault of the Singularians, as maybe represented by Ray, is this idea that intelligence is a singular, that it's one thing. And actually, I think that we have really no idea what intelligence is, and it's probably like 100 different factors. And that means that, in fact, probably a lot of the biggest problems in terms of our understanding, or mysteries, let's call it, a lot of the biggest mysteries in the universe are, we may have an intelligence that the humankind may not be able to solve by itself, and we may need other kinds of intelligences to actually comprehend the universe. And so what we may be able to do is invent other kinds of minds that will be smarter in certain dimensions from us, just like your calculator is smarter than you in arithmetic. And together, unified in some ways, we can actually collectively comprehend or answer some of these mysteries.
Well, again, I very much understand and accept your argument, but several alternatives do not seem incompatible to me with what you're proposing. Mm-hmm. So, for example, one such artificial intelligence could turn out to be the technium, eventually, yes. a super intelligent, super powerful, absolutely, almighty computer spanning the whole globe,
yes,
right? Which can then in turn spawn intelligence across the galaxy first and then across the universe.
Sure. Okay.
Another option is all those tendencies that are biological tendencies that you mentioned, like mm-hmm. acceleration, greater mm-hmm. complexity, diversification, mm-hmm. They do seem to me, at least, to suggest that there may be a moment when alternative-based intelligences arise that could be of equal to human or better than human level of intelligence, right? So just like, for example, you say that you think that minds of human equality mm-hmm. would have to be based on tissue and cells just like humans, but say mm-hmm. People argued like that before the Wright brothers about flying, for example, right? They said, well, we can't build flying machines because you have to do it exactly like the birds with feathers, and they
right. Well, actually, I'm not right. No, I'm not saying that you can't have intelligence without flesh. If people said no, you can't have flying machines like birds without flesh, they'd be true, because the airplane flies nothing like a bird. I'm only saying that you can't have an intelligence like human intelligence mm-hmm. without human tissue. But I don't think we need intelligence like human intelligence. I think I reject this idea of, like you say, exceeding human intelligence. I don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it's like saying we're going to make humans that exceed humans. What do you mean exceed humans? If we're going to make human bodies that exceed humans. You can say they exceed humans in a certain dimension. Maybe they run faster, or maybe they are bigger.
Well, I'll give you an example. For example, okay. I was interviewing Professor Kevin Warwick from University of Reading yes. a few weeks ago.
I know who he is.
And he was saying things such as, for example, I would like to be able to see in infrared or in ultraviolet, sure. right?
Sure.
I would like to be able to do 1 trillion calculations per second. I would like to communicate with my wife via thought or via the internet via thought.
Sure.
And all those things. So when you put and you add extra dimensions in our capability to perceive of and our ability to process that incoming information multiplied by a factor of, I don't know, 1 million, then you do come, I think, it seems to me, to a superhuman level of intelligence.
No, see, I think you have another kind of intelligence.
Well, yes, yes, you do. But yet there is some kind of continuity from us if we are the starting point, because he believes that through cyborgization of the human body, you can, and that's another issue, by the way, which you barely, you didn't really touch on.
But let's go back. So would you say that we're just basically super chimps?
No.
Why not?
Well, in a way, we're super bacteria. I mean, it would follow from your own book, right? We are the continuation, the current state of that process, which started in the primordial oceans in the form of bacteria, and then it's us, and then it's continuing to evolve because we are a process, not an entity.
But I mean, would you say that we're super chimps, even as an entity? That humans are super chimps because we're smarter than chimps. Now, we're not as strong as chimps, and we're different in many ways.
Yeah.
But would you say we're super chimps?
I see your point, and I accept it. Yeah, I wouldn't say we're super chimps.
Right, and so we're different, and that's what I'm trying to say is that we're going to make. They will be super. They will exceed us in certain dimensions, but not necessarily all dimensions because there's no reason to. And so it's this idea that there's only one dimension, that there's only one vector in intelligence, which I am trying to reject. It's this idea that intelligence is many-forked, many different dimensions, highly complex. And if we're focused on just this idea that it's one long ladder and we're going to kind of accelerate it, and usually the acceleration is always just going faster. But in fact, most of these things are going to be going in directions that we haven't gone in. That's going to be the real excitement, is understanding that there are different ways to think that we have not even imagined yet. It's not just that we're going to be going faster. So there's this, I mean, I think this idea of the acceleration is blinding us with a single scenario. And that's sort of what I'm trying to reject.
Yeah, and I totally accept your point on that level, that it's only one of the potential scenarios probably, but also it seems to me, in my mind, as one of your cases of inevitable outcomes, right? So you give the case of, say, the stripes of a tiger or the dots on the butterfly wings, and the specific dots or stripes could be random, but all of them are having the same tendency of developing those innate tendencies, right? So my understanding of artificial intelligence coming to be was kind of similar of it. Right.
Well, but let's rewind the tape of life and go back to the era of life when they were just maybe sea cucumbers. And we say, what's the future of evolution? And if you said, well, it's obvious that the future of evolution is humans, you'd be right. But I would say, yes, the future of evolution is humans plus another million other species all interacting together. Yeah. It's humans and giraffes and apes and porpoises and whales. It's all those. It's not just humans.